Ben, we're halfway through the draft. How are you feeling at this point? Is this kind of going where you expected?
Yeah, for the most part, there have only been a couple of discrepancies, and even those were somewhere in the mix. It really felt like after somewhere after the top 9, 10, 11 guys, it felt like for me there was another whole cluster, such a cluster that you kind of wanted to start getting them on the right teams.
Hmm.
It was about where it was for me. It's not obvious at this point who the next best players are. Even and I spent more time studying this one than the previous drafts. It's still not obvious to me in some of these cases.
I have I have two players still in my upper tiers. I have one for my first tier, one for my second tier. Do you have any more quarterbacks? I assume not.
No, I have no more quarterbacks coming tonight.
I have a quarterback on my long list. We'll see if I throw in another Mitch Trubisky like surprise like I had last time around, but maybe RG3 was that. All right, I'm up next with the Cincinnati Bengals. Let me look back through. I haven't done my no, I'm good on my oral history. A lot of the stuff is in the back half of the round. So the Bengals had two picks in this draft from, we mentioned him before, the Carson Palmer trade. Palmer wanted a new deal from the Bengals after the 2010 season, and he did not report to the team for any offseason program. So they were forced to not only draft Andy Dalton in the second round, but have him start week one. And eventually they found a trade partner for Palmer in the Raiders. So the Bengals have two picks here, as you can see. They also, with one of those picks later at 21, could be making a trade. So knowing I have a extra pick or maybe some more in my back pocket here at 17, what do I want to do with Cincinnati? So here's what's going on. Rookie Andy Dalton and rookie AJ Green both started in the 2011 season. Both proved their worth. Both were pretty good. Obviously, the defense was filled with young talent up front and was about to turn the corner. And the offensive line had three-fifths of their starters in good shape. Um, I'm leaning interior offensive line and wide receiver, which is funny because you look at what they did in this draft, and it was Kevin Zeitler, it was Mohamed Sanu, and it was Marvin Jones, kind of all throughout the drafts, and that was clearly where they were at too, interior offensive line and wide receiver. Um, all players made my top 40, and so now it's also about knowing I have that second pick. Do I want to take one of those, right? How do I play the game a little bit, right? Um, of need, depth of the position, those sorts of things. Um, Sanu and Marvin Jones, like I said, are both on my board. I don't think I'm gonna end up wanting to take them. Um, at this point, there's quite a few guards I'd be happy with. There's one that's like a clear step up from the others, but there's a player still in the top 10 of my big board, and I think I gave you that whole long preamble, but
Hmm.
Demario Davis is right here.
Yeah.
And I think I'm just gonna have to take him and plug him in. Like I said, that group had a fun defensive line um, at the time in Cincinnati, and I think I'm just gonna add another good young player there and really see what we can cook up. So, Demario Davis. Plus, hey, who knows? Let's play the multiversal game again, right? If Demario Davis is on the Bengals instead, maybe Vontez Perfect never plays for the Bengals, and maybe he never lays that dirty hit on Antonio Brown. Maybe Antonio Brown's a different person now. Let's just throw that out there. Screw you, Ben.
Demario Davis for me was a guy, always a blind spot for me. I always had to be reminded every year of how good he was because I don't know, for whatever reason, I either just didn't see him that much or when I watched, I just wasn't paying attention or something. And that's probably part of the reason that even still at this draft, he's this low. But again, for folks who never saw him or who don't remember, Demario Davis was a heck of a player. And, we could have taken him top 10. It would not have bothered either one of us. It just didn't happen. I did like the other three linebackers better, but he was a heck of a player. So, yeah. And honestly, I had him labeled for where you're at 17 right now. I was
Hmm.
going to take him next at 18 if you didn't.
Ah,
So,
got him.
yeah,
Got him.
that was perfect.
All right. So we take the Ben approach and do best player available for the Bengals there at 17. We'll see what I
Yeah.
do with that next pick for them at 21. What are you going to do for the Chargers here at 18?
So let me remind the audience what was happening at this time with the Chargers. This was the Norv Turner coaching era for the Chargers. Philip Rivers, of course, sitting there at quarterback. You've got Antonio Gates at tight end. Over on the defensive side, you have guys like Corey Leggett, Sean Phillips, Takeo Spikes, Donald Butler, Quentin Jammer, Eric Weddle. If it is bringing now, just a reminder, and this again goes with part of the changes of the game. Lots of teams at this time were still playing 3 or 4 linebackers on the field. That was routine.
Hmm.
So Chargers were decent, were good at linebacker already, especially with Phillips back there. But I'm going to go ahead and add an offensive lineman here. I've got my pick of several. I feel like the name I ended up with here is a guy that's grown near and dear to my heart lately, and that's Kevin Zeitler. Um, you talk about a guy that has just started everywhere forever and somehow looked better over the past couple of seasons than he did before.
Yep.
It's remarkable. I don't really know how he's doing that, but Kevin Zeitler is the guy we're going to plug in here for the Chargers on the offensive line, and they certainly could have used that on the offensive line, that attitude and that toughness, bringing in Kevin Zeitler.
That's a great pick. And you got me back because that was going to be my pick next for the Bears at
Uh,
19. Zeitler, yeah, just great years in Cincinnati, great years in Baltimore. Goes to Detroit, and you're like, all right, this is probably when the guards start to fall off. Great year in Detroit. Goes to Tennessee. This is probably when it's going to fall off. Great year in Tennessee. Has he officially signed back yet? Do we know? He was just
I
like
don't
skipping
know.
all the spring
Yeah.
stuff. We're just waiting for him. Um, Speaking of guards in Tennessee, shout out Peter Skoronski getting his big extension, being the highest paid guard in the league right now. Peter Skoronski,
Yeah.
so good for him. Everybody that told him his arms were too short can, go do what they're gonna do. Um, all right. Now what I need to double check because now you've got me scrambling here on the Bears. I still probably need to go guard. I still probably need to go guard anyways. Um, the other thing I could do. All right. So the Bears. Here's the Bears. I mentioned, they were towards the end of the Lovie Smith era, but right in the middle of the Jay Cutler era. They had Cutler, they had Matt Forte. Their line, they had some spots on left tackle was especially taken care of, center was taken care of. Um, they had one guard stick around for a little while. But like I said, I'm probably going to go offensive line here. They took Alshon Jeffrey in the second round, but they're not going to pass the ball a lot. I'm not going to worry about that right now. Um, well, this guy, there we go. This guy's going to be what I do here. Um, Kelechi Osmele. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing his name. Was the second round pick, I believe, of the Ravens this year. He was actually the starting right tackle during this 2012 season when they won the Super Bowl. And then he ended up kicking inside to guard where he got an all-pro nod, a couple Pro Bowl nods. Um, so that position flexibility is key. He played for a good while, 2012 to 2021, I believe. Um, and just like consistent, healthy starter for a long period of time. Chicago at the time had a first round pick playing right tackle. Let me see if I can find his name for you guys. Gabe Karimi was their first round pick in 2011. He started for them in 2012, this upcoming season, and then that was it. So this ability and like I said, the guard position was in flux as well. So this guy was some tackle guard flexibility who started on a Super Bowl team, played for a long time, got to the ceiling of one All Pro nod. That's going to be my pick here for Chicago at 19. We're going to go on a little run of offensive linemen, I feel like here. So Osmele is going to be my pick.
Yeah, and I had several offensive linemen to choose from. I feel like they're very close. It's not like they're overwhelming. If they were overwhelming, I would have already picked them in the top 10. You know me, and you too. We love our offensive linemen. If they had truly been overwhelming, we would have already went and grabbed them. So none of these offensive linemen here at this point are overwhelming. But you talk about guys that had long careers and started a lot, like just everywhere. it really impressive that they could string that together. And there were several of these guys in that draft. So, yeah, this was one of those guys for sure.
All right, you've got Tennessee at 20. What are you gonna do here?
Yeah, so I was scrambling a little bit trying to figure out what the heck I wanted to do here. So I am checking on one player right here as we speak. There's still offensive linemen. By the way, this was the Mike Munchak years for the Tennessee Titans. I think they actually finished 6-10 that year. But you look through the roster, not a great roster, man. I'm not even quite sure how they finished 6-10 that year, to be honest. So, just to be really frank about it. But anyway, one of the things they could have used was wide receiver. Okay. And I'm going to go with a wide receiver here. I'll be curious to see where you had this guy, but very productive receiver, a guy that's easy to forget about. But wide receiver Marvin Jones is who I'm going
Yeah.
to pick here for the Tennessee Titans. They they to me their position group was bad enough. They could have used a lot of help all over the place. It just was not a great roster that year, but the talent at wide receiver would certainly have tried to help. Jay Clocker was the quarterback, so that was not helping things either. But you go through and you look at Marvin Jones, it's easy to forget he was never a dominant wide receiver ever, but just a very productive wide receiver in a couple different places. And a receiver I enjoyed watching too. I really did. It wasn't like he was so pristine at anything, but I just enjoyed watching him bring the production pretty much every week. So that's the pick.
I love that one. I had Marvin Jones at like 37 on my board, but that really could have been anywhere from like 33 to 40. Um, Good player, good solid all around player. Played for a lot of teams. I mean, talk about a peak guy of like when we started doing this stuff together, being like sneaky wide receiver three ad for whoever it was, Jacksonville, and then Detroit when he came back to Detroit for a little bit. Marvin Jones, like this is yeah, this is a good pickup for Tennessee. Now, I will say, aesthetically, I loved this wide receiver room for Tennessee at the time. Kenny Britt and Nate Washington were like after my heart. You talk about 6'3", 230 in Kenny Britt, and then Nate Washington just being, former Steeler, of course, but just being like a long, thin speed demon. Um, But Marvin Jones, fit in the slot along with that. Let's go. Mike Munchak, I know you're an O-line guy, want to run the ball. Nah, man, let's get back in shotgun and run this thing. Let these guys zip around. Um, from one Marvin to the next, back to the Bengals. Um, Marvin was the coach at this time, right? Am I tripping? I might be tripping. Anyways, um, it's late, everybody. Cincinnati Bengals on the clock here, and they have a trade on the table. So let's explore this trade a little bit. I mentioned wide receiver and interior offensive line for the Bengals, which I still need. They could move down 6 spots to New England at 27. New England popped up here. Who did they take in this original draft? I should have this information for you guys ready. Um, I'm just gonna go ahead and do this. I know we're on YouTube now. Hey, thanks for being here on YouTube. Like and subscribe, comment. We'd love to do this with you guys next time. New England traded up. Oh, this is where they traded up to take Chandler Jones actually at 21. So that
Okay.
that guy's not there now, but they've already submitted the offer and we can choose to take it if we wish. But I don't think I want to wait 6 picks for the Bengals here because I already didn't take a need. Yeah, and we've taken we're taking all the guards, Ben. Shocker. Kevin Zeitler, Osmele, um, all going lately here.
Yep.
So I'm gonna stick and pick for the Bengals. No trade for you, Patriots. Um, I like two guys. Do I want, they went guard, so I'll go guard, even though there is a center that I like. But I'm gonna go Brandon Brooks, the guard who spent a long time with the Philadelphia Eagles. Um, like I said, they took Kevin Zeitler in this draft at 17, the Bengals did. Um, and he started and played there, I think all, 4 years of his rookie deal before he goes to Baltimore. So I'm just going to plug Brandon Brooks into that spot. Again, not the longevity of a Zeitler, not quite the ceiling, but just solid, productive player, good player on that Eagles line for a long time. So that's going to be the pick here for Cincinnati.
So I love it. No, this is one of the first ones that well, I shouldn't say that. Oh, Simile was a guy I had farther back. So was Brooks. Brooks was because he had those two amazing years really with the Eagles,
Yep.
but before that he was solid. He hadn't yet hit his ceiling, and you mentioned, of course, the ceiling here on him. But again, if these I can't say this enough. If these offensive linemen had been amazing, we would have taken them in top 10 or top 12. We would not have let them sink. So you have quite a mix here of guys that we would have all been proud to have. Brandon Brooks for me is one of those guys, but I did have him farther back in the cluster, but he's totally going to fit right here. So love this here.
All right. Now I'm actually back up again
Yep.
at 22 with the Browns.
Hmm.
Um, I did not take the running back. I did not take a quarterback for them. In fact, I went in linebacker. So let me flip over to the offense. But I'm gonna stick with this run here, Ben. I'm gonna stick in the trenches and try and help this offensive line because the Browns took Mitchell Schwartz in the second round of the actual draft, and they're not getting that opportunity here. So
Mm-mm.
let me find them somebody that can start in his place. Now there's a lot of options. You've got Kelvin Beachum. Shout out Kelvin Beachum, man. Seventh round pick in this draft by the Steelers. But he was still starting last season. You're talking about 12 years as a starter, basically, on multiple teams. He went from the Steelers, where he was playing left tackle, to the Jets playing right tackle, to the Cardinals, where he's been a consistent starter there for a really long time now. Um, and he's a guy that has played guard in his career too, so he could go there. There is Riley Reef, who was with the Bengals for a while and the Lions, and I think that would be a good player as well. Talk about giving some guys second chances. Matt Khalil, what was the tackle that the Vikings actually took in fourth overall in this draft. Had a Pro Bowl year as a rookie, and then just like was never really right after that. Injuries, and maybe just not quite the player that should have been a top five pick. So I'm kind of like, do I just take that and swing high for a ceiling? But there's no points in that in a redraft, unfortunately. Um, but then the wide receivers, are back up here, and I wrote down Alshon Jeffrey, I wrote down Marvin Jones, Mohamed Sanu is an option. I'm not gonna do quarterback. I thought about it for a hot second because they do obviously still need one, and there is a quarterback. Um, I don't know if I'll be anybody else quarterback worthy. I might take a quarterback later. I'll wait, and I'll save his name. Um, so for Cleveland, I'm gonna take an offensive lineman. I shouted out Kelvin Beachum. How long did Riley play for? He tried to go do that 1 year with the Patriots, and I don't think that ever did anything. Riley might have also been a little, yeah, 2012 to 2023. 12 years, longer than I thought.
Yeah, long time.
Detroit, wow, he didn't spend that long in Cincinnati. I forgot it was only the 1 year. Several years in Minnesota, several years in Detroit. Yeah, let me do that. Let me do Riley Reef. I feel like his ceiling, I remember his ceiling being higher than Beecham, but shout out Beecham, man, for being a seventh round pick. Riley Reef was originally a first round pick of this draft. He went 23 to the Lions. Wow, so he's gonna move up even. Get one extra draft slot pay grade for himself. Um so offensive lineman for Cleveland, Joe Thomas on the left side, Reef gonna play on the right side, and we try to build this thing out.
Yeah. Okay. So this is one of the guys that I did have higher up, right in this area for the offensive line. And even Beacham's career is a little bit complex because he looked really great. Then all of a sudden, he wasn't really great anymore. But you're going to you're going to take what you can get at this point when you're looking at some of these guys' careers. And Beacham was a guy I wasn't quite sure where to slate him, but he was right here in this group for me, right in this area. So this was one of the guys I would be considering all in here. And again, when he was on, man, he was a tremendous asset. He really was.
All right, you are up with the Lions at 23. Were you gonna try to take Reef here for the Lions and do one of your if you can keep a guy at the same spot, you're gonna do it sort of deals?
I believe so. I'm gonna double check back through here. Give me 1 second. Um, sorry, I'm just so the audience knows, okay, because we didn't plan this. We are literally doing this live, right?
Oh
Like
yeah,
these
always.
are not pre-scripted picks. So what me and Simon are doing, we have our big board. We're also trying to match up team needs, but some of the guys aren't there, of course. So we're scrambling live, and sometimes we're looking 2 and 4 picks ahead while also trying to comment to what the other person is saying about the current pick. So it only gets harder the deeper into the round we go. It was a
And
little easier
and
in
the
the
further back
first
we go.
10. Yeah, because you grab the guy that you're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe he left this guy on the table, you know. But now at this point, you're like, okay, he got that guy. I've got 4 more here. So anyway, the Lions at 23. What did they actually do that night? Tell me again. I was
Right,
looking at something.
Riley Reef, who I just took.
Yeah, so um give me 1 second. I'm gonna roll over here to the to that group. Now I in my head you were talking Beecham, but
I took Riley. Hmm.
you took Riley instead. You talked about Beecham, right? And then
Yep.
took Riley. Okay, well I'm just gonna take Kelvin Beecham then. Okay, so
Ah, crap.
that's in that. Yeah. All right, so you know, we'll do that. Right.
I was about to get beat him to the Steelers 6 rounds earlier, or yeah, 6 rounds earlier, and then they got him.
Yeah, so that's my
Good.
bad that I what I said about Kelvin Beecham. Riley Reef actually had a different career. I didn't really feel like he sparkled as brightly as Beecham did at times, but Reef had a long career. You already mentioned that. But I'll Kelvin Beecham is the guy we'll take here. He did sparkle. Didn't go as long as I would have liked, unfortunately, but when he played really well, he was a thing of beauty. So that's who we're going to take, Kelvin Beecham.
Yeah, that's a fun one, man. I was gonna put him back on the Steelers. I was feeling really good about that. All right. So at the time for the Steelers, man, Beecham would have been there for Matt Stafford too. Oh, that's a good one. That's a good one. Um, Man, now do I just go by my board and take someone fun, even if the Steelers don't need him at this point? I might just do that. Yeah, we're getting tough. It's getting tough now. So anyways, let me talk to you guys about the Steelers. The Steelers, the defense was still just an animal at this point in the 2012 season. I'm going to list you the entire starting lineup for the Steelers defense in 2012. You ready for this?
Yes.
I need something in my life, Ben. I need something.
Animal is right. So here it comes.
All this and they still only went 8-8. Ziggy Hood, Casey Hampton, Brett Kiesel, Lamar Woodley, James Harrison, Larry Foote, Lawrence Timmons, Keenan Lewis, Ike Taylor, Troy Polamalu, and Ryan Clark. Yeah, just studs everywhere, man. Now let's talk this through in real time. They had Antonio Brown, they had Mike Wallace, they had receivers, but Mohamed Sanu is looking at me there. That's a little interesting. Um, Even though was Emmanuel Sanders still on this team? I think Sanders was still on this team. Yep, Sanders was still there. Jericho Cotchery was there. Plaxico Bears was there. That's great. What was the cornerback situation? This started to get into the phase where Steelers corners were killing me, but man, this was young Cortez Allen was there. I mentioned Taylor. I mentioned Lewis. Who am I? Oh, Larry Foote and Lawrence. See, because I'm looking at like Donta Hightower and Melvin Ingram, right? Love those
Yes.
guys, especially early
Yep.
in Ingram's career. But they had Lamar Woodley and they had James Harrison, and those guys did not come off the field. How long? Now, Lamar Woodley didn't have a very long career. When was he done? He played one more year for Pittsburgh after 2012. So do I just take Melvin Ingram as the next highest guy on my board? Because I wanted an offensive lineman, but the Steelers were so good at this point of taking the late round guys. So I'm of two minds, Ben. You want to help me settle this? Actually, I
Yes.
don't. I say that, and then I'm like, I know what he's gonna pick, and I just didn't feel good about it. I'm gonna take Melvin Ingram. Screw it. He's gonna be the number three. Lamar Woodley's gonna have 2 more seasons, and then Ingram's gonna be there for the end of James Harrison's career into TJ Watt's career. Taking Melvin Ingram here is also gonna stop them from taking Jarvis Jones in 2015. All right, we're playing chess, not checkers, and it's gonna save things. So Melvin Ingram, who ended up going to the Chargers in this draft, uh, had a good career. That's going to be the pick there. I really thought about Doug Martin, In this era. This was kind of like the post Willie Parker, pre Le'Veon Bell. They took Le'Veon Bell 2013, 2014. Um, so I thought about it. But I went back through our last redraft and you had the Steelers and you took Malik Hooker at safety. And I just remember being like, okay, that's fine. And I didn't want to feel that way. So Melvin Ingram makes me feel something.
Funny story. You told me a few days ago that you had the Steelers in this draft, and I remembered that as I was about to pick here, but I got turned around on whose turn it was because I was juggling five different things, and I was planning to pick for the Steelers, even though I remembered you saying you were picking for the Steelers. And as I was scrolling through, Melvin Ingram was the name that I was going to grab. So, yes, that's
Perfect.
exactly who I was going to do it for you. And so, yeah, Melvin Ingram was a guy coming out of South Carolina that, people really thought this guy could get a lot of pressure on the quarterback, and he did. But
Mhm.
it never really exploded the way some people thought it might. But still, early in his career, very productive. And you can totally imagine this helping out this Steelers defense. Like you said, they're already a monster, right? So you're kind of rich getting richer, but boy, this was something that they could have used right then and there that would have helped them.
All right, here's that next eight. We had Demario Davis, Kevin Zeitler, Kelechi Osmele, Marvin Jones, Brandon Brooks, Riley Reeve, Kelvin Beachum, Melvin Ingram. Um, Fun one. That's a fun stretch right there. I really like that one. Um, Beachum, man. Shout out Kelvin Beachum. Seventh round pick. Now coming in the first
Yes.
round, 23 overall. Um, Long career for that guy. Really shout out to them.